Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, I welcome the panelists and the participants to this webinar entitled as Healthcare, the Sunrise Sector of the Next Decade. I am Dr. Neeraj Mahendra. I am Dean for School of Health Sciences, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Dehradun. I hope all of you are doing well in these very difficult times and staying at home, staying safe, and following the lockdown instructions and whatever is being recommended by the experts as well as our Prime Minister. So before we go ahead, I would like to introduce our today's panelists, Mr. Bhavesh Sareen and Mr. Devesh Singla. Hello, sir. Mr. Sareen is Vice President Operations for Sun Pharma, which is the biggest pharmaceutical company of India. He's looking after 4 different production facilities, including Paonta Sahib, Baddi, and 1 in Russia. He is a graduate in pharmaceutical sciences from Gulbarga University, Karnataka, and has over 27 years of experience in pharmaceutical operations. Welcome you, sir, and thank you for your time and for agreeing to be on the panel. Mr. Devesh Singla is Vice President of Health Economics and Outcome Research and Regulatory Access at Parexel International. As a life science leader, he drives global capabilities in advanced analytics, data science, commercial research, access, and HEOR. He has been leading offshoring roadmaps, strategic investments, and incubating and scaling up commercial analytics and data science teams. He did his graduation in pharmaceutical sciences from Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak, and an MBA in pharmaceutical strategy from NIPER Mohali, that is National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Mohali. Thank you, Mr. Singla, for accepting our invitation, and I welcome you.
Thank you, Dr. Mahendra.
So before going ahead, I'll just briefly introduce UPES and the School of Health Sciences. So University of Petroleum and Energy Studies was established in 2003 in Dehradun, and it is a state private university with over 12,000 students on campus and around 4,000 who do their distance education at the university. In 2019, we started School of Health Sciences with 2 programs, B Pharmacy and BSc Food Nutrition and Dietetics. And this year, we are planning to add 11 new programs, which includes clinical research, microbiology, physiotherapy, optometry, and MBA and BBA in healthcare management, and MSc pharmaceutical chemistry. So we have a very well established campus, and a new building has been brought up for School of Health Sciences with best of facilities. And besides that, we have access to Coursera, which gives 3,800 different courses which our students can register on. Besides that, our girl students get 25% scholarship, and there are almost 95% placements which university has been doing year on year, and even our alumni gets assistance up to 5 years for in case they want to move or want any help with their placements. So now coming back to the topic. So Mr. Sareen and Mr. Singla, you both represent a very important sector, especially at this time, for not only the country, but across the world, that is healthcare sector. pharmaceutical sciences, clinical research, hospitals, is all this being part of this sector. So my first question to both of you, and maybe either of you can take it first. How is healthcare and pharma industry doing in these times of COVID-19, when almost every country in the world have been shaken, and there are so many deaths have occurred. We have already crossed 1 lakh casualties, and the number of cases is increasing day by day. Although in India we have done comparatively well, but the industry and the economic sector has definitely been hit. So, Mr. Sareen, would you like to take it first?
Thank you for the question, Neeraj. So I would like just focus upon this question is that, as far as the countries and companies alike, so they continue to grapple with these challenges which have been thrown by this COVID-19. A specific area of concern, particularly in this uncertainty which has been surrounded by COVID-19 for India as well as global pharma industries, is the supply chain. So the concerns have been aggravated by the fact that particularly the worst case, it started from China, and majority of our API, means active pharmaceutical ingredients, which are being imported from China, they are giving a big impact to the industry. And if we see Indian domestic pharma industry, it is highly dependent upon the imports, with more than 60% of its API requirement is being catered by China only. So of the total import of APIs and intermediates in India, China accounts for 65 to 70%. And in some specific APIs like cephalosporins, azithromycin, and penicillin, for which demand is quite high, particularly for azithromycin in this present scenario. So dependence is as high as 80 to 90%. And it is more alarming in case of intermediates also, because majority of intermediates are also being imported from China, and China is exclusive supplier for that. For instance, I would like to give example of PNG and the other raw materials, which are a part of key intermediates for cephalosporins, so that are being imported from China. So until we develop some alternate source, so it becomes a challenge for pharma industries. And certain India companies, they have started like stocking of APIs, and we have also got approval for certain API manufacturing, and approximately 3,000 crore has been sanctioned for setting up this API industry in India. So that dependence upon foreign countries is less, and we are self-dependent upon this. And the other thing which I would like to pay focus is that globally supply chains are set for a major overhaul, as COVID crisis has exposed the country and companies. They are heavily limited number of trading partners, and this outbreak has impact of more than 53 critical bulk drugs.
But again, I think there was a silver lining in terms of we being acknowledged as pharmacy of the world, and even US President kind of requesting our Prime Minister, please send the hydroxychloroquine. So has that increased the respect for Indian pharma industry across the world, and how is that impacting? So you must be interacting almost every day across the world. So what is the sense over the in terms of respect for Indian pharma industry?
See, if we particularly talk about this hydroxychloroquine and its requirement, so what India is producing at a pace, so that requirement is quite less in terms of requirement of hydroxychloroquine. So if you see the requirement of US, it was 29 million tablets. So 29 million is nothing. You must have seen one of the company like Kedla at Baddi. They are producing approximately 1 crore tablet in a span of 1 week, and IPCA is also producing at the same pace. So, and we do have sufficient bulk drug for also hydroxychloroquine also. So I don't think that there will be scarcity of hydroxychloroquine. And with the production of hydroxychloroquine, we cannot say that pharmaceutical industry will grow immediately by exporting this one molecule or two molecule to US or some other countries in which demand is there. But what I talked initially is that the impact of this will not be at this junction, but maybe in later stage we may get some benefit, because not only hydroxychloroquine or erythromycin, you must have heard about this COVID-19, that the patient who are elderly, old, who are having diabetes or hypertension, they are prone to this disease. What in European countries, doctors they have started increasing the prescription of these drugs. So demand of these drugs have gone high. So that is the scope of this thing where we can invest.
Okay, thank you, sir. So now I'll move on to Devesh, and you again represent the clinical research and the pharmacovigilance analytics. And again, that's a lot in news these days. And what is the impact of COVID-19 and how the sector is doing these days? So, your mic is not on, Devesh. Can you please switch on your mic?
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I look at the impact of COVID-19, in pretty much two aspects. One is the short-term impact, and the other one is the long-term impact. And as Mr. Sareen said, totally our supply chain has been really exposed. And when I say our, I'm talking about the pharmaceutical industry, because it has always been considered as fragile, and the impact created by COVID-19 has brought it to limelight once again. So I do believe that yes, in the short term, there is a negative impact that we may see from a supply chain perspective, because a lot of countries, a lot of regions are under lockdown, and that will have an impact. But for me, I look at it more from a long-term benefit perspective, and as you said, there is a silver lining around the clouds here. I call it out as blessing in disguise kind of a scenario, because we do understand that as Mr. Sareen said, that there's a lot of dependence that we had on China, for example, on certain APIs. And increasingly the countries, the companies, both they will look at alternatives, to create a backup, to create other destinations for them to be increasing or dependent upon from a API manufacturing perspective. And India has a huge amount of opportunity out here to displace China on certain aspects, which will further mean that it increases the opportunities for the pharmaceutical industry in India. Number one. Number two, from a clinical drug development perspective, we've seen of lately that analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data sciences, they have been deployed quite significantly when we are talking about identifying the gene structure of COVID-19 virus, or we are talking about development of the vaccine for COVID-19 virus. So the appreciation for some of these data analytics and data sciences based clinical development will increase, which means that the scenarios wherein we find drug discovery, drug development being done based upon some of these emerging technologies will only increase. That's kind of number two. Number three, if we talk about the entire healthcare setup, the number of hospitals that we have, the ratio of doctor to the patients, the ratio of healthcare staff to the patients. From an India perspective, we are talking about a very, very poor ratio. So the government's focus on increasing the healthcare infrastructure in India would increase as well. So we are currently spending about 3% of our total GDP on healthcare sector, which will only increase as we move ahead. And this will further, lead to creation of a lot of opportunities for the overall healthcare sector in India, both for life sciences, which I call as pharmaceutical industry, as well as for the healthcare, which is the delivery sector in India. So again, as I said, I look at it as a blessing in disguise. I wish there were better ways of us realizing the need of a better infrastructure in India, both from life sciences and healthcare perspective. But COVID-19 may have negative short-term impacts, but this will force us, to think in the direction which will lead us towards a lot of positivity as we move ahead.
And thank you, Devesh. And you almost covered all three sectors. And, so moving ahead, um, I think definitely with government now spending more on API, hospitals, and healthcare as a complete sector. And we have been listening it day in and day out from the Secretary of the Health or the Prime Minister or from other ministers. So I hope there would be a lot of opportunities coming up. And otherwise also healthcare is said to be a sunrise industry for coming decade. And we saw the projections in some recent reports saying that it would be a $372 billion industry in India itself by 2022 and would grow by 250% by 2030. So what makes this sector so important? What is, and I don't know, these numbers might change because of how the world economy suffers because of COVID-19, and almost every country across the world might face a recession, but still this would be a huge sector, and this will be one of the most invested sectors in the coming years. So why is this sector so important, and what are the factors which make this a sunrise industry of the coming decades?
So, if I go first here, I mean, I would say, yeah, I mean, definitely, pharmaceutical or healthcare sector as a whole is a sunrise. I mean, I would say it's one of those industries, Neeraj, which hardly faces recession, right? I mean, if we talk about some of the other industries, whether we talk about retail or finance or banking or consumer goods, those industries are always prone to demand and supply challenges, and if there is less of demand, more of supply, that's kind of something which pushes the industries towards either decline, negative growth, however you want to put it, or into recession. Now, people won't stop from falling sick. This is not we are not in a world yet wherein we are talking about prevalence rates of different diseases kind of coming down. So, people will always keep falling sick. There will always be a need for healthcare management, which means that this industry is always there to grow. The population is growing across the world, across the country. If we have to limit this question to India, uh, the diversity of population is increasing. We have less of aged population as we compare with some of the developed nations, which will always present opportunities for us, for the Indian healthcare sector. The number that you gave, I read 350 billion somewhere by 2030. I think the numbers keep on changing by different reports, but pretty much the range remains the same. Now, the other aspect is, if we look at the pharmaceutical side of the business, we just spoke about more of API manufacturing coming here. We've seen a lot of multinational companies always, already setting up both their manufacturing as well as their research and development functions out here in India, which is again contributing to the growth of this industry in Indian scenario perspective. Very recently, the clinical trials regulations were kind of loosened out by the government of India, which means that more companies, will come to India for clinical trials, especially when we talk about phase 1 and above, which opens up, growth opportunities for this industry in India again. We speak about all this analytics and data sciences and machine learning kind of stuff, so all that is again contributing towards the growth of the industry. So I'll I'll keep the core pharmaceutical operation supply chain side of the question towards maybe Mr. Sareen, but I do believe that the kind of talent that we are producing, the kind of demand that is there, the overall opportunity for this industry is humongous in this country. And by the way, the cost saving, the average cost of conducting a clinical trial in India is 40% less than what it is in the US. So there's no reason for the companies to come to India, which will further increase the opportunity for Indian pharmaceutical or Indian healthcare sector to increase.
So before we move to Bhavesh, one more sector which is in focus these days is microbiology and virology. Almost every day we are just talking about viruses and how to intervene, how to create a vaccine. And can you throw a little bit of light on that also?
Yeah. So see, historically, when we talk about microbiology or virology kind of streams or sectors in this industry, uh, unfortunately we haven't paid too much of attention, because the core research, when we talk about the wet lab research that happens in India, is still limited to some of the institutions or very few companies in India. This scenario is now changing quite significantly, because not only the academic institutions, the government bodies like ICMR, not only they are focusing on bringing this core research back to the forefront, even the pharmaceutical companies are investing quite significantly from a preclinical research, from a drug discovery perspective, in India as we move ahead. And that is that is something which will open up opportunities for this sector, for microbiology and virology kind of sector to flourish once again. Number one. Number two, when we again, if I talk about clinical research companies, the company that I'm representing, or if I talk about some of the service providing consulting companies, they are engaging with the sector of microbiology and virology, some of the other omics fields as well, genomics and bionomics and all, quite significantly, which is kind of contributing towards the growth of the sector once again, not only from a talent engagement perspective, not only from a talent generation perspective, but also from the perspective of consumption of this talent as we move ahead. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So Bhavisa, we'll move to you now. So why is pharma industry the sunrise industry, not only for India, but across the world?
Neeraj, if we talk with respect to some data, so if we talk about healthcare industry, so market can increase by threefolds. So it shall be approximately rupees 8.6 trillion industry by 2022. So that is a big sort of this thing target what we should achieve, I think, by the pace what we are moving. And to support this data, like India pharma and healthcare sector is set for yet another year of growth, despite this pricing factor and core cost headwinds. The sector is finding hope of increased spending, improved accessibility, and growth exports. So what we say is that improved access to medicine in India and exploring new markets while maintaining the thrust in US particularly. This will help country's pharma industry to record double digital growth in the coming year. That is one aspect. The second aspect is that this sector, especially pharmaceuticals, will be up against headwinds of increased cost related to regulatory compliances, particularly in the US market, which is a challenge right now at present. So price controls, access markets, and mandatory in generic industries in India. So the benefit what we have in India pharmacy is that we produce drug at a very low cost as compared to the other countries. So that is a benefit which is there in our hand. And this optimism is being driven by government of India, which is having a thrust for this universal healthcare, even through this Ayushman Bharat also. For which increasing number of middle class seeking quality and affordable healthcare, along with the ability for private payers to attract global patients. So a shift toward the patient-centric quality care, enhanced use of technology in delivering care, and higher share of India in medical tourism are some of the dominant factors which will bring us very close to the target which I have said in the beginning. And balancing sustainability and improving quality is the other challenge for Indian industries, particularly pharma industries, which will give us the top priorities for this sector. And there is a need for quality healthcare to be delivered to everyone in India. Hence, incentivizing capacity building in tier 2 and tier 3 stages would go a long way in achieving the goal of the universal healthcare. And Indian government trust on this universal healthcare estimated 140 million households expected to enter the middle class in the next decade. And this will not only increase the consumption of healthcare services, but also has an impact on healthcare demand and a significant uptake patient volumes. And like I said, like we say generally that we are exporting medicines to US, but if we see that there is a scope in emerging market also, particularly if I talk about Sun. So Sun, we are and particularly Ponta side. So if we see that our 50 to 60% volume is being catered to the emerging market only, and there is a huge scope and value is also, and the benefits and this thing is also more, potential is more. So I think with this overall total scenario, we shall be heading towards the target which has been set for 2022.
Thank you, sir. So you almost gave a complete picture of so mentioning medical tourism as well as schemes like Ayushman Bharat, which are taking the medical facilities to each nook and corner of the country, and we need well-trained and skilled professionals to deliver that services. So I think now I'll continue with you only. So we started in 70s with the patent regime, and that brought us forward as the we almost dominate the world now. But there are certain changes coming in the sector. So we are talking about Industry 4.0 with robotics, automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning coming into industries, as well as into a hospital or other sectors in the healthcare. So what are the skill sets as say operations head you are looking at in your prospective employees?
Neeraj, there are 2-3 aspects regarding this. One is that India pharma and healthcare sector is set for yet another year of this robust growth. And experts said that improved access to medicine in India and exploring new markets while maintaining trust in US and emerging, like I said earlier also, it will help country's pharma industry to record growth. And when we talk about this automation as compared to the earlier 70s or 80s, so yes, now there are so many things which has come as a part of automation in pharmaceutical industry. And there are new technologies also, like initially we were having conventional coaters for coating the products. Now we are into step forward that we are doing these booster coatings. And now, even pellets are being compressed into tablets. So those we call as a MUPS. So these are the new technologies which are bringing a sort of new challenge to the pharmaceutical industry, and we are catering to and delivering those challenges also. So like I said initially that if we talk about Sun and Sun Ponta side plant also, so if you talk about automation, so all our lines and these things are integrated. Even the powder transfer system is through vacuum, and even all the machines are equipped with PLC programs, and all those data are being captured through these computers and softwares. And as a part of regulatory requirement, we have to retain that data also. And dependability upon man is less as compared to the machines. So that is a part of automation. And with this, there is one more help that productivity is more as a part of automation. And if we talk about in totality the benefits of this automation, so that is that there is very less chances of having a mistake, and doing right first time is also in place. And if we talk about our out of specification and other results, so they are also being decreased. So these are the factors which are going to help us with respect to automation.
So you'll look for these skill sets in your prospective employees also. So they should know about artificial intelligence or how robotics works and how say IoT is being utilized in industry. And incidentally, we are trying to include these things into our curriculum so that our students get exposure to this.
Particularly software skills.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. That's very important now.
Yeah.
So, Devesh, now I'll move on to you. So, you represent the sector which has made rapid strides in India, and as you mentioned, with change in government policy on clinical trials, and India now working very hard on pharmacovigilance. We have this PVPI as a separate entity now, uh, as well as we are focus of contract research from across the world, be it clinical, be it and say small molecule or biology. So, uh, so what do you think would this sector be doing in next 10 years? And what are the new job roles which are coming up, and what are the skill sets you are looking at in your sector?
So, yeah, I mean, I will answer this question in two parts. The first part is just to talk about the sector a little bit in terms of why we feel that the sector is growing. And I think I touched upon it earlier as well. And the second part would be around the job roles, or around the skills that are emerging because of this growth. If we look at it, we are nearly a population of 1.3 billion individuals. And as I said earlier, we have very diverse set of genetic pools, genetic backgrounds, and this kind of offers a large treatment naive patient pool for development of drugs for various range of indications and conditions. Because of which, the pharmaceutical companies have always been very, very eager to come to India and to conduct clinical trials or other parts of drug discovery and drug development, value chain in India. Unfortunately, we had this, highly regulated aspect of clinical trial scenario in India for last few years. But in March 2019, this was kind of opened up, which means that the pharmaceutical companies will be able to conduct clinical trials much more smoothly in India. So yeah, I mean that's kind of increasing the opportunity. That's kind of increasing the growth of this sector or of this industry in India. Furthermore, we look at interventional study designs. Now, I understand that I should not be using a lot of jargons on the discussion today, but it's more about the level of accuracy that we offer as part of clinical development in India, in comparison to some of the other destinations or some of the other places that are there as options. We talk about India being diabetic capital of the world. I mean, so there are a lot of opportunities out here from a clinical drug development perspective or drug discovery perspective. Now, coming to the second part of the question, which is what are the kind of jobs, what are the kind of roles, what are the kind of skills that are needed? I would start from the very basic. I think the first and foremost that we expect, will be looked upon will be the clinical research skills, understanding of drug development process. What are clinical trials? How clinical trials are conducted. What are the different types of protocols that are developed? So all this forms part of clinical research. So the jobs that could be coming out of this would be clinical research associates. These are typically the people who work for clinical research organizations and helping them in terms of conducting clinical trials for various pharmaceutical companies. The second aspect that we can look at is the data analytics, um, the artificial intelligence, the advanced analytics kind of skills. And these typically include three components, or these typically include three types of skills. One is the domain understanding, which is understanding of the healthcare or the pharmaceutical industry. The second is understanding of statistics and mathematics, for someone to be able to build analytical approaches. And the third aspect is understanding of various tools and technologies. So, we talk about various different tools as part of AI and machine learning these days. So the roles related to AI or to machine learning need to to have these three components. So the person needs to understand domain, the methodologies, on the basis of statistics and mathematics, and tools and technologies. That's the second role, which is quite emerging these days. The third aspect is, and I don't want to forget about the healthcare, the delivery part of it. So when we talk about hospitals, when we talk about more patient care facilities being set up, obviously there will be increased need for healthcare management professionals, people who understand the supply chain process of these healthcare delivery units. I'm not talking about pharma right now. I'm talking about hospitals and patient care units, people who understand, how these units are run. So that becomes very important aspect as we move ahead, from a healthcare management perspective, and even from a clinical research organization perspective, like my company. We do look out for healthcare management professionals, because they help us in terms of running our clinical trial sites. The fourth, again, which I would want to bring up is more around, we spoke about it, microbiologists, virologists, people who can contribute to the core research, and build a career out of that. So those are the four broad areas, and I missed upon pharmacovigilance. My apologies. That's also increasing, because when we talk about real world data, this is another very fast emerging function within the healthcare sector. So for real world data, it becomes very important for us to collect this data as part of phase 4, as part of interventional studies. Pharmacovigilance is important because safety has always been very, very important, and with all the tools, techniques, and analytical approaches available, pharmacovigilance is only going to increase. So pharmacovigilance is yet another skill set, that will increase, or that's already increasing, by the way, to a certain extent.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you covered a lot of things in your discussion. And I think with contract research and we exporting pharmaceuticals or doing clinical research for others, the dossier preparation and the scientific writing tools and understanding, as well as skill set required for writing, would also be a very important part.
Writing definitely, as you said, Dr. Mahendru, and other regulatory is another aspect. Understanding of regulatory aspects of various different countries. See, this is one function of the pharmaceutical industry, wherein the pharmaceutical companies always have this urge of cost saving, and India not only offers that element of cost saving, but more importantly, it also offers that talent which is required from a regulatory services perspective, whether it's dossier filing or it's undertaking global value dossiers or global regulatory dossiers kind of things. So yes, and scientific writing, medical writing is definitely one other thing.
Thank you, Devesh. So before we open up the session for questions to the attendees, one last question to both of you. So what are other areas in health sector you think would be in focus in coming years? So besides what we discussed, are there any other specific areas you think would be very upcoming, and the students should think about those areas also?
Okay, so I'll quickly spend a few seconds on this. See, for me, I think we've discussed and touched upon a lot of that. We spoke about both the life sciences from a drug development, manufacturing, and marketing perspective, and we also spoke about the healthcare part of it. For me, definitely, I do see clinical research as to be one function, and I know, Dr. Mahendru, that we've spoken about it, but I just cannot take my focus off it, because clinical research is definitely one function which is going to flourish significantly ever since we've seen these regulatory changes. The second element is around AI, machine learning, and analytics. Now, by the way, many a times when we start thinking about AI, we start thinking about engineers, we start thinking about mathematicians and statisticians. Yeah, I mean, there's no taking away that mathematics and statistics is important, but let's not underestimate the need of functional knowledge, the domain knowledge. Pharmaceutical or healthcare industry is a very, very complex industry, and it's not, and I mean, not being demeaning to other industries, but it's not like retail or automobile, wherein if I need to go and build my career today in that industry, I can actually do that, because the basics of the business kind of remains the same. But healthcare, your customer is different from consumer. So I do believe that this entire domain understanding element will be very, very important when AI and machine learning and data sciences kind of skills or kind of roles are, are coming up.
So Bhavesh, if you can maybe take up this question.
Yeah, yeah. See, initially I touched upon was that Indian medical tourism market, so which is growing at the rate of 18% year on year. So that is one part, and it is expected to reach $9 billion by 2020. So there is a significant scope for enhancing healthcare services, considering that healthcare spending as a percentage of gross domestic product is rising, and the government of India is also expanding on health sector, so which has shown a growth of 1.4% as compared to the 2018, and the government of India is planning to increase public health spending to 2.5%, so as to increase the country's GDP by 2025. So that is one part with respect to Indian medical tourism. The other part is health insurance, which is also gaining momentum in India. So if you talk about health insurance, so gross direct premium which has come underwritten by healthcare insurance, it is 18.2%. So if you talk about the growth, so it will be in terms of rupees 24,864 crore rupees. And the third one is the hospital and diagnostic centers, so which attract foreign direct investment worth $6.34 billion between April 2000 to June 19. So this is according to a data released by Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. So these are the three other sectors which are would be coming in focus in the coming year. And like Mr. Divesh said, two important factors. One is pharmacovigilance and regulatory. Regulatory, one is that filing of dossier, and the other small things like what do we do in our daily practices also, that if we increase the batch size of particular one product, so we have to file in certain countries. So that help us. If there is a change in the source of API, like I said in the beginning, that if we want to do APIs within India, so these are the resources which we will be filing, and there will be variation filing in the regulated countries. So that is another scope of focus in the coming year.
Thank you, sir. So I think we discussed lots of things, and I hope students have benefited from this, learning about different job roles in the sector, learning about how the industry is doing, and what is the way forward. So Bhavesh sir, now I'll start taking the questions, and the first one is directed to you. It says, what are the job opportunities after doing B Pharmacy?
There are 2-3 things into this. One is that if a person is having more interest into pharmaceutics, so and he is well versed with pharmaceutics, so then he can move into manufacturing of medicines. So that is one part. And if he is having more or other interest in regulatory, so he can go into regulatory. The third one is pharmacovigilance we talked about, because this is the area in which there is a more of a scope, and there is very less investment into this. And the other one is quality assurance. So these are the 4 perspectives which we can see into the jobs into the pharmaceutical industry.
And I think I would add the marketing and sales into this, which is again a big workforce on which the pharma industry relies a lot.
Yes, yeah.
So thank you, sir. So next question, I think Devesh, if you can answer this one. This is a student, I think, who is doing his BDS. So he wants to know if he can do MBA in healthcare management after BDS. And I think we are also starting this MBA in healthcare management. And I think there is a huge scope for students coming from either medical background or dental or pharma, even sciences. So Devesh, over to you. And Devesh, your mic is on mute.
I keep on forgetting that. Sorry about it. So yeah, I mean, I have seen, I've hired a lot of people who have come with a healthcare management background, and especially after they have pursued their BDS, Bachelor's in Dental Sciences. Typically when you look at healthcare management pass outs, you either find people with BDS background or you find people with pharma background. I mean, we do find MBBS and some of the other medical streams as well, but more often than less, the composition of BDS and BPharm graduates is much more in healthcare management kind of a work stream. And absolutely, yes. I mean, in fact, in my own family, I have my own sister who's a BDS, and she did her healthcare management. This was a while back, and working with one of the leading hospitals in Gurgaon at this point in time, being head of their procurement administration, and it's after 5 years. So short answer to your question, yes, MBA in healthcare management after BDS is very much doable. And the second aspect is there are definitely a lot of prospects that open up because it kind of combines your medical stroke scientific knowledge with more of that on the ground management, project management kind of knowledge.
Thank you. Maybe I think we missed a little bit of nutrition side of the food industry and nutrition, which is again a very important part of healthcare sector. So there's one question on how is nutrition and food sector doing in these times, and would it be growing more in India, or should students look for opportunities abroad in this sector?
Okay, I mean, I can give it a shot. I'm not an expert in this field by any means. See, if I have to kind of relate the question to the industry, I can think of nutraceuticals, the closest. India is one of the leading destinations once again for the production of nutraceuticals. I don't know if this question is more around food processing industry, which
both
I'm
food processing as well as nutrition.
So yeah, food processing industry. Again, I'm not an expert, but basis limited understanding that I have, given the recent investments that Government of India has been making in industry, creating food and food processing parks, especially when we talk about states like Uttarakhand, parts of Uttar Pradesh, a bit of northeastern states out here. So there's a lot of investment that is being made by the Government of India. There are a lot of international multinational companies who are coming in and setting up their food processing units. So again, it's a bit out of syllabus kind of a question for me, but that's the best answer that I can kind of give.
Bhavesh sir, this is, I think I'll direct it to you. So a student is asking that there's huge gap between pharmacy graduate students and what the industry requires in terms of, I think, skill sets. That's what the student is asking. So what are the areas that, say, a university like ours should focus on so that we meet the industry expectations in terms of skill development for the students? And how important is experiential learning in this?
I think when I last visited your campus, I think you are on the right direction because initially, yes, there was a gap as compared to the other universities. So what they intend to do is that they pay more focus onto theoretical aspects and they forget about practical aspect of that. So what you are doing is correct. You are giving more focus on the practical approach. And I think that is the right way of doing it also. And the other important fact is that what you intend to do is that simulation kind of thing what we can do at universities level, so that what the students study, they can correlate it with the industrial equipments or instruments, etc. So setting up a laboratory at your campus, that is a one aspect in this direction. So other aspect will be, a pilot scale of equipments which can be installed, and students can correlate theory with respect to the practicality of the things. So that will help them a lot. And the other aspect which we discussed with you also was that their visit to the industries. So they can feel about the environment of the industry. They can have knowledge about the industry, and then this will definitely going to help them.
Thank you, sir. And also, I would take this opportunity to thank you for, say, giving some of the equipment to us to set up this lab.
My pleasure.
That's a great contribution, and I think that gives our students an advantage of actually seeing what industry does at their level, and also the shadowing programs that will help us a lot. So this question is, Devesh, for you. So the student says that he is glad that you put a lot of emphasis on domain knowledge, especially for the life science students. And he wants to know that how can I improve my ability in math and statistics so that future employers can, so he can get employed in analytics.
So see, mathematics, statistics, analytics is increasingly being made part of the curriculum. You know, whether we talk about pharmaceutical sciences, whether we talk about health sciences, management studies, you know, these subjects are increasingly being made part of the regular curriculum. So definitely there's an opportunity, and I believe this is my understanding of UPES. You know, this is again one of the critical thought process that the UPES faculty is kind of venturing out for, in terms of ensuring that some of these upcoming streams are part of the regular curriculums of some of the conventional work streams or conventional courses. As far as the certifications are concerned, yes, I mean, certifications kind of always help you, but see, I don't have the context in terms of which stage of your education are you in, if you are a graduate or a postgraduate, or you are you haven't still joined a graduate class. But I typically don't advise people to go after certifications without necessarily giving a complete thought to it. There are a lot of training schools, and I'm talking about training schools, not universities, online, offline, which are available, which offer certificate courses. I think what is more important is, if you are an undergrad right now, to focus on that domain understanding, focus on these mathematics and statistical subjects which are part of your regular curriculum, and build an understanding on top of it. Unless you are someone who's in the final year of your graduation or your post graduation, and you are going to look out for a job in another 1 year, if you fall into that category, then probably yes, look out for some analytics related courses or certifications, whether from your current university or from some externally available universities or training schools. I mean, again, I can only answer this question in a limited way because I don't have the complete background understanding of the person who's asking this question.
Yeah, I understand that. And so this one I will continue with you. So this is this attendee wants to know what are the career opportunities after doing BSc plus MBA.
Okay, so after having done your bachelor's, and again it depends what BSc are we talking about, what stream of bachelor's of sciences are we talking about. See, there are an number of opportunities. We can start with sales and marketing. We can go into into research and analytics. When I say research and analytics, I'm talking about commercial research, market research, commercial analytics. That's definitely one of the very looked up to or looked upon kind of a career option that people choose these days. I have hired a lot of bachelors in sciences who've done their MBA or not BBA, but more of MBA after that, and who kind of come and join my market research teams, contributing in terms of conducting both the primary research, which is actually conducting interviews with your respondents, or the secondary research, which is the desk research, and thereafter contributing towards some of that business making decision process or decision making business process, sorry, um, by virtue of the domain understanding and by virtue of the analytical understanding that they build. So I would say broadly what comes to my mind is definitely sales and marketing. Pharmacovigilance, by the way, is definitely one of the other options, because the skill sets typically fit into the requirements that are there for those kind of roles. And then I'm talking about roles like market research, commercial analytics, business intelligence kind of things.
Okay, so Bhavesh, this is for you. What are the opportunities for pharmaceutical analysis students in industry? So if someone, say, continues, specializes in analytical chemistry or pharmaceutical analysis, what is scope for that in industry?
There are 2-3 things. One is that they can pursue their career in quality control, and in quality control also there are 2-3 things what we can subdivide is one is that wet chemistry, other is that instrumentation, and the third one is packing material testing. So these are the things where we can pursue their career.
This one I can go to both of you. So the question is, does it make a difference whether students are graduate and going to a job, or postgraduate and then going for a job? So maybe either one of you can take this one.
Yeah, I mean, see, for me, or increasingly the companies that I have worked for, especially when we talk about consulting companies and clinical research organizations, we've always preferred postgraduates. That post-graduation could be the same work stream. If someone is a B Pharm graduate, he or she could pursue his or her M Pharm, or it could be MBA. But post graduation is normally preferred for us, and the reason for that is it's not only about increased understanding of the subject matter, but it is also about the increased level of professional maturity and professional acumen that the person brings to the table after having completed the postgraduate. And the other aspect is also the stability of the employee, because many times we've realized that the employee would join us and after about a year or year and a half, they make up their mind to go and pursue post-graduation, and they would leave the company and kind of pursue some of those postgraduate courses that they would want to. So for various reasons, both from a professional acumen, professional maturity, subject matter expertise, stability perspective, we've most of the times preferred postgraduates then only graduates, unless we are speaking about some specific skill sets like BDS or MBBS. That's where we can, we've hired graduates as well, but more often postgraduates.
Bhavesh, your views on this?
Yeah, Dr. Neeraj, it is quite right as said by Divesh, because if we have to go into research and analytical, then definitely it is preferred to be a postgraduate. But my personal experience is that if we have to do something like it's a graduate or postgraduate, if we do it, religiously, and if we pay a lot of attention to this, and then all those things become secondary. So we should have deep knowledge of what we have done and what we intend to do.
And probably the only thing I would add to what Mr. Sareen said there is also this constant reskilling and upskilling. So, it's not only about doing your graduation or post-graduation and then everything is over. I think there was one question that I read in the list of the questions somewhere, and probably I can take that opportunity to answer that also. As long as you're reskilling and upskilling, some of these economic crises would not impact you. But the moment you start stop reskilling and upskilling, the impact, there's no job security these days. So let's be very honest and clear about it. Unless, not even government jobs nowadays. So
Yeah, I do agree with this. So yeah, I do agree with
please.
this. Yeah, I do agree with
Sorry.
this. So if we do not update ourselves, so we will be obsoleted totally.
Yeah. So there's another interesting question, which maybe I would also take at a later stage, but first I'll request you to answer this. Does government pharmacy college or a private pharmacy college make a difference?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Singh, Mr. Singh, please.
Yeah, mine, just to opinion into this is that, particularly if we talk about government college or private college, so it does not make a difference. The only difference is that what is our approach towards the course. So if we take it seriously, whether it's a government college or private college, it totally depends upon how do we take the things, how do we perceive the things, what is our perspective onto this. That is one part. Second part is, yes, there may be a difference between the resources which are available in the government college or as well as private college. So if a particular student is in government college, so what he can do is that he can explore the possibility by having contacts with some of the institutes or some of the industries. And if he's into private college and if resources are good, so he can explore those resources in that institute only.
Yeah. So again, it's all about the resources. It's all about the quality of faculty members, and I mean, it depends upon which government colleges or which private colleges are we talking about. I mean, there's a mix of both, right? So you have private colleges which don't necessarily have the kind of infrastructure that is required, while you have some, which are world class by way of that. And then you have government colleges also. I mean, NIPER is a perfect example out of that. So it depends upon the college. It's not about government or private. I think it's about the college per se, which you're wanting to go into. I mean, conducting a good research around that college is important. It could be government, it could be private, as long as you have good faculty and good resources, as Mr. Sareen said, good infrastructure out there. And very important thing is exposure. Exposure to, by way of maybe exchange programs, exposure by way of industry academia relationship. So those are the things which are very, very important. Otherwise, it will be theoretical knowledge. Practicality will still be missing.
Maybe I would also like to add to this. And see, the kind of resources and the infrastructure, faculty, the way I would at least say at UPS we are investing. And a lot of thought goes about hiring the faculty, getting applications from across the world and then choosing the best. The process of selection, the infrastructure we have created, and both Bhavesh and Devesh have visited us on campus and have seen the kind of labs which have been created, which are, I would say, world class, and you won't even see in any of the maybe other schools in India, be it government or private. Connectivity with the industry, the kind of advisory board, and Bhavesh, you are on there, and the kind of discussions we have on those advisory boards, how to take our students forward, how to create a curriculum which is industry oriented, exchange programs. And so our students have been selected, although they are just in first year, for an exchange program in Taiwan. They were to join on 1st of June, but due to this COVID-19, the program has been now postponed. So they would either go in December this year or they would go in the summer next year. With the kind of effort we are putting on these things. Soft skill training, which at many times is missing in many of the colleges, be it government or private. Focus on that, because I think we had a master class yesterday also from one of the HR experts. And one thing which I noticed in his talk was that analytical skills, soft skills, adaptability, which are the skills which industry are looking for. So developing those skills, bringing in courses like artificial intelligence into curriculum. So these are some small things which we are adding into our curriculum. We are giving exposure to our students. Our first year students visiting the industry in first week of joining, at least having a view of what exactly they are getting into. We have been talking to Bhavesh regarding the shadowing program for different job roles, getting understanding of that. Similarly, a seminar on artificial intelligence. Uh, Connect with the society around, understanding that and bringing that empathy into the classroom. So I think it will depend from school to school or college to college, whether it is government or private. But I think should go out and at least have a look at those colleges, see the infrastructure, see the faculty, and the curriculum, and then decide which college they should join. So I think the next question which I'll take up is, so what are the other areas which make you economically stable after BPharm? So what should a student do after BPharm to ensure economic stability of that student?
I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly. So
I think it's about the salary or the kind of money they can earn in that area. I think that's what the question is about.
Okay, so see again, after only BPharm, I mean, you do have a lot of options from a career pursuance perspective, whether it's into sales and marketing. I mean, even from a quality management, quality assurance perspective, there are opportunities out there. Now it depends, how you are measuring the money. It's always relative. It's never absolute. So I mean, there is a good start that one can get. I mean, it depends how that start is. I mean, how you define goodness. So for me, once again, I would recommend, if going for a postgrad, maybe if you want to pursue a career before you go for your postgrad, but my personal recommendation and advice would always be for going and pursuing a post graduation, to get that stability in that you are probably asking for.
Okay, so this one question which I think Bhavesh can take, which is slightly different from what we have been discussing over the last few questions. So what is the reason that we import APIs from China? Why don't we manufacture those in India itself?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, we have also started exploring the possibility of manufacturing API in India. And for that, government of India has also approved the project of approximately 3,000 crore. And if particularly I talk about Sun, so if we are manufacturing formulations at our site, so approximately 70 to 80% API it is being manufactured in-house only. So yes, over a period of time, dependency was there on China because cost of API was low as compared to the cost what we produce at India. But now with other no option left, so people have or industries will have some innovative ideas and will procure API at the same cost or even lower cost in India also. So we are moving in that direction only.
Okay, I think we have covered most of the questions. I would like to thank both Bhavesh and Devesh for their time and for answering and giving their perspective on healthcare industry and its growth prospects in near future. And I would also like to thank the attendees. I hope a lot of their doubts were cleared and they came to know about this industry in a much better way. Uh, Thank you everyone for joining. And again, a big thanks to Divesh and Bhavesh. If you want to give any closing remarks, I would request you to just maybe your viewpoints to close the session. So Bhavesh sir, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah. Mine this thing, I would just like to say that like there was a last question which was addressed about the economic point of the student once they complete the graduation. Yes, it is there in everybody's mind once we join some course, that what will be our future after the completion of the course. My request to all the students there is that what they should bring in their mind is that they should not think of earning money immediately after doing graduation or post-graduation. They should invest some time in the industry or the area in which they are doing their job. They should also consider this as a part of their studies. So what we intend to do is that generally we do our graduation and post-graduation. We think that we should earn such amount, and it is not as per our capability or what we have done. It is not being returned, and return of investment is not like that. So my request to all of you is that we should invest 1 to 2 years in the industry, and we should do it religiously. Once we do and get expertise and then go on upgrading our skills, definitely money will follow and everything will follow.
So Divesh, your closing remarks.
Yeah, so I was a student about 15-20 years back, and one of the things that I did not do very well, I should have, if given a time, given an opportunity to go back in time, I probably would invest more in self-learning. You are part of a university or an institute, and there is a curriculum that you are following, and the university is also making all the effort to make sure that you get the exposure. But till the time you invest time in self-learning, your education would not be holistic. So that's one. And secondly, as Mr. Sareen said, always continue to invest, or rather it's a process of learning, unlearning, relearning. So you might learn something today which may not stay relevant 10 years after after you did that. So continue skilling yourself, upskilling and reskilling. So self-learning, ensuring that you gain exposure beyond your books and beyond your classrooms is very, very important, and that will require a lot of investment and commitment from your end. That's the only thing I would say at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think UPES as such invests a lot in placements. We almost have 94 to 95% placements here on. And continuing the learning and relearning, as Devesh and Bhavish both mentioned. So we have the Coursera courses, which students can select and do themselves. And there are 3,800 of them from best of the universities. We have very good LMS systems where you can access the courses which are offered across the campus and learn those. So of course, this is an era where you need to be abreast with what is going on across the world and keep learning new skills. Otherwise, you might become redundant. I think we'll end at this note, and I would like to thank both the panelists and the attendees for attending this session. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.